Hey guys, welcome back to Sparkman Homestead. Here is this week's meals for you. So this week's video is going to be a lot of very easy to make meals. I was kind of in a little bit of a slump this week and just needed some really easy, quick to make meals just to kind of resort to. We are near the end of the pantry challenge and I am just kind of getting burnt out from the cold weather, burnt out from just the darkness, and I'm just really needing some spring, which is good because we have some spring weather coming this week. But anyway, so the meals are just going to be really quick meals that I was kind of hesitant to show you, but I want to show you guys meals that are really quick to make when you are feeling the same way or when you just really don't have very much time. So the very first meal that we are going to get started is just an English muffin pizza. I had made a whole bunch of sourdough English muffins. I'm experimenting with a recipe, so these ones didn't turn out the best, so I'm trying to repurpose them. All I'm doing is just cutting the English muffin in half. I'm just taking some of my homemade pizza sauce that I canned up and just putting that on top of the English muffin. I have my oven preheating to 400 degrees, and again, with any type of pizza, top it however you like to top it. We love mushrooms, so I topped this with a heaping load of mozzarella cheese. I got some pepperoni from Trader Joe's. It was so delicious, so we topped it with that. And then Steven likes black olives, so we put some black olives on it, and then I just put some more cheese because you really can't have enough cheese, and that's it. Put it in the oven for about 15 minutes, take them out, and there you go. This works really well also with bagels. I love making bagel pizzas. You could even use a tortilla and make a pizza with that as well. Just really quick, easy to resort meals, and this one was good because then we had leftovers for the next day. For the second meal, we are going to make my other favorite go-to really quick meal, and this is one of Steven's favorite meals. It is a beefy tortellini skillet. So to get started, you are going to take 1 pound of ground beef. I've actually used a turkey in this and it has turned out really, really well with it. So you want to make sure that that beef is completely cooked through, or whatever meat you're using. And then you're going to come in and add some salt and pepper and just season it. I chose to add a little bit of garlic into this because I like to put garlic in everything. So you're gonna just stir that until it's all incorporated. And then you're gonna come in and add half a teaspoon of some Montreal steak seasoning and 1 cup of water, and just stir that together. And then you're gonna add 1 teaspoon of a beef bouillon. You could use granules or you could use this better than bouillon that I use. Love this stuff. And then you're just going to stir that and then come in and add 1 package or 19 ounces of a frozen cheese tortellini. It needs to be frozen for this recipe. So you are going to bring this to a boil. Once it comes to a boil, you're going to reduce the heat down to a simmer. You're going to cover it and cook it for 3 to 4 minutes or until the tortellini is tender. This particular tortellini I got from Sam's Club and it literally cooks up in 4 minutes. So 4 minutes was the magic mark to that. So once that is all cooked, the tortellini is nice and tender, you're going to remove it from the heat and you are going to sprinkle it with about 1 cup of a shredded cheese. Now I used a smoked cheddar cheese in this. The original recipe does call to use like an Italian cheese blend, so like mozzarella and stuff like that. Once you get the cheese on, you are going to cover it and let it stand until the cheese is melted. Again, literally just 2 minutes just sitting there and the cheese is melted. This dish comes together pretty much as quickly as it takes to ground the beef. It's such a good meal. It is not bland. It has so much flavor from the Montreal seasoning steak, or the steak seasoning. It's just a really good go-to meal. For the next meal, we are going to do a Crockpot meal. I love Crockpot meals. I can just turn it on and walk away and not think about it. So we have a whole bunch of pork loins in our freezer. We buy our pig in bulk from a local farmer and then he sends it to butcher, and then we just kind of tell them how we want our cuts done. He recommended that we get some of this pork loin. He says it's really good, and we are not fans of it. We really just like sausage, bacon, and ham. And so I had a whole bunch of these pork loins that I had to get used up. I also had a whole bunch, or have still a whole bunch, of plum jam in my pantry. I made this a couple years ago and just really haven't found a lot of uses for it. So I thought it would be really good to make like a pork plum recipe in the crock pot. So I took 3 really thick pork loin pork chops, and then I added 2 half pints of plum jam over top of that. I came in and added about 1 to 2 tablespoons of a minced garlic, and then I shredded a little bit of ginger, so I probably used about 1 teaspoon of ginger on that. Just stirred it up, and then I set my crock crock pot on low. Now after I set it on low, I realized that I kind of wanted to add a little bit of heat to it, so I came in and added this red pepper seasoning. It's like a Korean red pepper seasoning. It's really, really delicious. So I set it on low and cooked it for about 4 hours. After 4 hours, I took the pork chops out of the crock pot and I just dumped all of that juice that was in the crock pot into a saucepan. So what I want to do with this juice is I want to make like a glaze with it. So I'm taking 1 tablespoon of some arrowroot powder and mixing it with about 2 tablespoons of water. And then I'm gonna put the mixture or that sauce onto the stovetop, and I'm gonna add a little bit more of that Korean red pepper seasoning and some more soy sauce. Oh, that's the other thing that I also put into the crock pot meal as well, as I did put some soy sauce in there also, but it wasn't really coming through in this sauce, so that's why I came in and added a little bit more of those. Once that sauce got warm on the stovetop, I came in and added the arrowroot and water mixture, and I'm just gonna bring it to a boil and just cook it until it is nice glazed consistency, and then I just poured it over top of my pork chops. Now 4 hours was a tad bit too long for these pork chops. They were a little bit dry. I just really struggle with pork chops. That's why I don't really get them from the butcher, because I just overcook them every single time, and I thought this recipe was going to be a sure shot, but it was a little dry. And then I was just showing you there the rice. I accidentally hit the high temperature on my stovetop when I was in the middle of making rice and accidentally burnt the bottom of rice, but I actually like burnt rice, so I didn't have a problem with it. So the meal in total was just kind of an overcooked meal. Luckily the broccoli was not overcooked, but definitely next time I make this, because it's a good use for the plum jam, I'm just not going to put it on for 4 hours. The next meal is not necessarily a really super quick meal, but it is one of my favorite meals. This one is called a mushroom lovers pasta. Now I have definitely made this recipe my own. I have left the original one linked for you guys, but this is one of my personal favorite recipes. So what we're gonna do to get started is we are gonna take 1 pound of ground beef and we're just gonna get it completely browned through. I normally like to use ground sausage in this, but because we had pork the previous night, I try to just do different meats different nights. So tonight I decided, instead of doing my go-to sausage, I was just going to come in and do ground beef. You can definitely use venison with this, and chicken would probably be really delicious also with this, like a ground chicken or a ground turkey. While you're cooking your ground beef or whatever meat you're using, just want to lightly season it with a little bit of salt and pepper. So while that ground beef was cooking, I was using 2 pounds of a regular button white mushroom. The recipe does suggest using like an oyster mushroom or like a baby bell mushroom. I just use the regular stuff, and I've usually used the regular button stuff and they taste perfect in this. So once the meat was cooked, we're just going to take that out of the pot and just set it aside. On another stovetop, we are going to get about 1 pound of pasta cooking. Now, I like to use bow tie pasta in this. The recipe definitely suggests using like a smaller pasta. It works really well in this recipe. So we're going to add 2 tablespoons of butter to that same pot that we just browned the meat in, and we're going to add the 2 pounds of sliced mushrooms. You just want to saute those mushrooms until they are completely cooked through, and what you're also trying to do is just get up some of those bits, those beef bits off the bottom of the pot, just kind of add extra flavor to this. You're going to come in and add about 1 to 2 cloves of minced garlic, and then about 2 to 3 sprigs of a fresh rosemary. I didn't have fresh rosemary, so I just came in and added some dry rosemary. I added about 2 teaspoons of it. You're also going to add half a teaspoon of red pepper flakes to your taste. If you're not a fan of the heat, you can definitely hold off on them. You're also going to add 1 cup of a dry white wine. Now, if you don't like to use wine in your cooking, a really good substitute for that is just to take a white wine vinegar and dilute it with half the water. So in this case, I was using 1 cup of white wine, so I would have done half a cup of vinegar and half a cup of water, and that's perfect substitution for that. You're going to add 2/3 cup of a beef or chicken stock. I used a chicken stock, and 2 tablespoons of a balsamic vinegar, and another 2 tablespoons of butter in this. And again, I just came in again with some more salt and pepper and just seasoned it up. And you're going to cook this until everything is good and cook through. It does recommend cooking it for about 5 minutes on a simmer until the liquid has reduced by half. Once that's done, if you're using the rosemary sprigs, just discard them, so take them out. And then you're gonna come in and add your cooked pasta into this. You also want to add about 2/3 cup of a freshly grated mozzarella cheese or Parmesan cheese. I definitely recommend using a freshly grated in this particular recipe. It does melt delicious in here. Now the recipe also says you can add some pine nuts if you would like. We're not fans of the pine nuts, so I usually leave them out, but I probably would add a really nice crunch to it. And then I just chose to top mine with a little bit more grated Parmesan, and this is just such a good, delicious meal. For the last meal, we are going to do a sweet treat. I found this recipe buried in my cookbook and I thought I would give it a try. I've never attempted it before. It is a pretty good recipe. It's for a honey bun cake. So to get this recipe started, what you need to do is have your oven preheated to 325 degrees, and you want to grease a 13 by 9 by 2 baking pan. You definitely want to make sure you're not skipping this step because the cake will stick to the pan if you don't really grease it well. So next we need to take 4 eggs and we just need to divide them. In this recipe, we are just going to use the egg whites. So I'm just dividing 4 of the eggs here and just setting the yolks aside just to use for something different. Next up, you need 1 package of a yellow or white cake mix. Now I make my own. I can leave the video where I make them linked for you guys. One thing I noticed when I poured this cake mix out is it was way too much cake mix. Because I make my own, the measurements were a little bit off. You need to use 18¼ ounces of the yellow cake mix, and I had way over, so I was just measuring it out just to make sure I had what I needed. I didn't want to have it too floury. So next up, you're going to take 1 cup or 8 ounces of sour cream, and you're just going to add that to your cake mix. You're also going to take your egg whites and add those as well. Next up, you are going to use 2/3 cup of an unsweetened applesauce. This is just some of my homemade applesauce. I canned a whole bunch of it unsweetened to use in recipes like this. So once you get that added, you are just going to mix that, and you want to mix it until it is moistened at a low speed, and then once it's all moistened, you're going to turn it up to a medium speed and whisk it for 2 minutes. Once it's all whisked together, you're going to pour half of that batter into that greased baking pan, and you just want to make sure that it is nice and even on the bottom of the pan. You're going to set that aside, and then in a medium-sized mixing bowl, you are going to take half a cup of a packed brown sugar. I just used a light brown sugar in this, and then you're going to add that to the bowl, and then you're going to take 2 teaspoons of a ground cinnamon, and then just mix that together until it is good and combined. And then you're going to take that sugar and cinnamon mixture and you're just going to sprinkle it all over the batter. You just want to make sure that it is evenly coating all of that batter. And then you're going to take the remaining amount of the batter and pour that over top of the cinnamon and sugar mixture. The recipe says to take a knife and just to swirl the mixture all around. I just used my spatula and just swirled it so that everything was mixed and combined. Once you get that done, you are going to bake it for about 35 to 40 minutes or until a toothpick inserted comes out of the center clean. So I just put it in for the 40 minutes. Again, my oven tends to take a little bit longer to cook things, but after the 40 minutes, the toothpick came out perfectly clean. So that was the sweet spot for me, at least. You want to cool this on a wire rack. Now, while this is still warm, you want to make a glaze to go on top of this. You do not need to have the glaze, but I was going for the honey bun taste, so I definitely wanted to have the icing on top. So to make the glaze, you are going to take 1.5 cups of an icing sugar or a confectioner sugar, whatever you call it, and then you are going to add in 1 teaspoon of a vanilla extract, and then to start, 2 tablespoons of a milk. I just use a whole milk in this, but you can definitely use like a plant-based milk. You do not need to use dairy in this. So you are going to just mix it until the icing gets to the texture that you like. I really liked a smooth icing, so I added probably another 2 tablespoons more of milk into this. And then once it was done, I just drizzled it over top of the warm cake and served it, and it was so delicious. So that is going to be the last meal on this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. There was a lot of really quick, non-thinking about meals in this particular video, and that is sometimes what I really need on nights where, again, like I said at the beginning, I just have zero motivation to do anything. So these were the perfect type of meals for that. So I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I hope I gave you a little inspiration for your upcoming week. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great day or night whenever you're watching this, and I will see you on the next video. Bye guys.